Hello and welcome to our online summit. Today I have the absolute pleasure to introduce my dear colleague, Dr. Priya Subramanian from India. We will have a two-time session and talk about bird remedies, trauma layers, and a lot of very interesting things. I only can recommend this interview to you, and I hope you have a lot of fun. So let's start with part one. So we are talking today about mental health in the lockdown, in this bad situation, and you specialized on depression and treating
Yes,
depression with homeopathy.
that's right. That's right.
Okay,
So,
love that topic.
yeah, so let me give a little of the background. So, when I graduated and I finished my 5.5 year homeopathy degree course, I immediately got an opportunity to join my alma mater. And I was initially taken on just to prepare lectures, but that year, as as chance or as circumstances would have it, a lot of the people who were there, who were teaching us, either fell ill or couldn't make it or moved away to be with the family or something. And I ended up teaching my own juniors, and a subject that I really love. I love materia medica. So I joined just to prepare to be an assistant, but I started taking small, easy remedies and for my juniors. So it was a very interesting situation. So because I had known them all as friends, and in the 1 year internship, they were, just behind us, and then I finished and I was teaching them. So my most interesting thing was to teach the first year students, simple remedies like aconite, belladonna, and just to transfer my love for materia medica to them,
I
because I had
see.
such excellent teachers. And it was around the last year that when I was finishing my, the fourth year, and during the internship, that I came across Dr. Rajan Shankaran and all the work that they've been doing, and Dr. Rupal Desai and her book about, the magnificent plants that she had written. So I had asked, in fact, my college library to buy a few copies and to keep it there so that I could refer to them. And I used to always read Clark's Dictionary of Materia Medica because I just loved it so much to know which natural order a plant belonged to. And although at that point of time, I wasn't really aware of how natural orders connect to each other,
Mhm.
as now we are studying more and more and more about how those natural orders, they and the families within them, how they react to each other, how they relate to each other, and how several natural orders, in evolution, how they related to each other. But at that time, it made a lot of interest spark in me to understand how aconite, pulsatilla, and staphylos aureus could belong to the same ranunculaceae but could be so different. And I would always make sure that I read Clark's Dictionary and Allen's Keynotes and Margaret Tyler's, Materia Medica while preparing my lectures. And I saw in the last part of Clark's Dictionary that there was a small section about Cronquist and how the classification of plants had begun and how they'd started putting them into the kind of their families. And it somehow, although I couldn't connect the dots, it somehow made a lot of sense to me that if a certain family has like a mother and father and brothers and sisters, they would all have similar kind of attributes, and they would
Yeah.
have similar kind of behavior patterns, and that you could say, oh, there go the Sharmas, or there go the Subramanians, so
Mhm.
something like that. So that sort of thing sparked in me. And more that I came to know about the work that Dr. Rajan Shankaran is doing, the more I was interested, and I read Soul, Spirit, Sensation, all the books, and tried to use it more and more and more in my practice. And I started my own practice, then got married, and I lived abroad for a few years. But wherever I was, I made sure that whenever I came back to India, I sat with one of our mentors, be it Dr. Sunil Anand, be it somebody else or whoever was available, and they were all available. They all gave freely of their time, and they really mentored anybody who was interested very open-heartedly. And I really enjoyed spending time with Dr. Sunil Anand and understanding how children's cases are done and how he used to receive them. And when my own children were born also, the first one went to him for a lot of things, and interesting remedies were prescribed, and he would always discuss the remedies. And we would the teaching was always a part of every interaction that we've had between the entire Bombay group. So about 14, 15 years back, I moved back to Bombay. And for me, the first thing was, what am I going to do? Whom am I going to learn from? And when will I start my practice back in India again? Because I was away for quite a while. And I started slowly attending Dr. Mahesh Gandhi's psychiatry modules. So for the last 7 years, a group of us have been attending, it's every alternate month. And Dr. Mahesh Gandhi has, very interesting position as a psychiatrist who discovered almost 40 years ago that he was curious enough and open-minded enough to realize that the way that he's practicing psychiatry is not going to help his patients. And that, so he started sitting with a lot of the doctors in the Bombay group and learning from them and seeing the follow-ups, and he would teach us all of this. So the setup in Mumbai is such that the cases happen, and then with the patient's permission we get to see those cases actually being taken, and then the doctor comes down and we discuss, and the follow-ups are shown. And so this, for the last 7 years we've been doing this, and it's been very interesting. So at one point of time, he said, I need somebody who can edit my first book and sit alongside me and work. And what else would I want? It was a dream. It was all my holidays come together in one. So, so I sat alongside him, and like I've always said, he's exact and he's exacting. So he's both of it. So it's very tough to, and very interesting to see how this, this mind works, and how this love for homeopathy comes from deep within, and how he says, I'm a homeopath. I mean, he doesn't say I'm a psychiatrist. He says I'm a homeopath. And he, oftentimes I would see patients would come and they would ask for allopathic medicines, and he would say, no, I'm a homeopath and this is what I do. And you'll get better results with homeopathy. And, this is what I'm going to prescribe for you. So I would see those interactions also happening. So it was a very rewarding, enriching, beautiful experience to sit next to him and help edit his first book and put it together. And I see him as a father figure, a mentor, and somebody who's very open-hearted and loving also as a person. So Dr. Mahesh Gandhi. So the last year when he said that, I'm trying to convert this into a formal course, a 1-year course, I was one of the first people who applied. I said, I want to do this. I want to simply just because in India, like in other places, what happens is that people are not aware of what homeopathy can do. They say, okay, so it's good for injuries. It's a little bit okay for if you have some gastric trouble, or if you've been to a lot of other doctors, it could be good for your skin or asthma. So they don't know, they're not aware of the fact that, homeopathy is good for panic. Homeopathy is good for a lot of a host of our mental illnesses, physical illnesses, mental illnesses that appear as physical illnesses, psychosomatic, what we call. So, because I wanted that, a postgraduate kind of a degree that college or a university recognizes. So then it puts the patient at ease, that they're coming to somebody who's been through a rigorous course, that they've, trained under somebody who's, very perfect and has a good practice, and, they're seeing things methodically, and they're marrying the science of psychiatry along with the art and science of homeopathy. So that's very important. There's a lot of awareness in patients in India right now, in Mumbai especially. So they have a lot of resources. You see, WebMD is there and Google is there for anything. And you can Google any symptom and understand anything. And you can buy medicines over the counter. A lot of the things are quite relaxed in India, that you can, order perhaps an Arsalb and you can buy it. So there's a lot of self-medication also happening. So during that 1-year course, a lot of us came together and we realized that we have a common vision. We want to not just bring homeopathy to people in a much more simplified, easier way, but we also want to educate, make them aware of what homeopathy can do. And my colleague spoke on autism, and I have autism is a very close to my heart, because I have a family member who's on the spectrum, and I've seen how homeopathy has helped that person, and how the integration into the society becomes easier, how bullying goes down. So for me, already personally and professionally, on both the sides, homeopathy is the mainstay. I have never myself taken any allopathic medicine since, gosh, I think from the last 25 years. Not even
Wow, congratulations.
or tooth extraction or anything. And my kids are not vaccinated, both of them. So I hold I want their natural immunity to take care of a lot of things, and diet. And so a holistic approach has always been there. And so yes, what was your question? Yes, so the group of us, we came together, and that's how our group Vitalia was born on 10th April this year. And we just approached Dr. Mahesh Gandhi and we requested that he launch the website, and he agreed, and he was there on 10th April, and he's been such a strong support and such an influence and such an inspiration to us. And the objective is to do everything online, so the patient doesn't really have to travel to you, wait in a in a clinic, and be exposed to what we thought was a very short term shutdown, but it's been over 100 days now. So the response has been very good. So we do all our consultations online. We have an app where the patient can download, book an appointment. So we are 9 doctors, and our main focus is on counseling, consulting, follow-ups, but we also do webinars every Thursday. So we have various colleagues and eminent homeopaths, and who are doing very good, interesting work, who've given freely of their time again. And we've had 15 webinars so far from 10th April. So every Thursday we have one. And they've spoken on very interesting topics, what homeopathy can do in infertility, which was last week. And then yesterday my colleague spoke on psychosomatic illnesses. And next week again, we have Dr. Mahesh Gandhi coming to speak on obsessive compulsive disorder. So it's, I think it's something, awareness of what homeopathy can do, the beautiful things that homeopathy can do to improve somebody's quality of life, is something that we feel is a responsibility that we have, because we feel honored and privileged that we got introduced to a science like homeopathy very early on, and it's made a lot of change in all our lives. So we feel we have a responsibility. We owe it to homeopathy to do everything possible to improve awareness, to keep things running. And we are all on the group Vitalia very strong supporters of what homeopathy can do, classical homeopathy can do. And also on the group, I'm very happy that we're all open-minded also. So we have a discussion once every month wherein we present to each other cases that where we are stuck, or where we would like another opinion. And the senior most doctor on our panel, Dr. Balwinder Singh, comes from Amritsar, and he's a second generation homeopath. So, and he sees something like 300 plus patients a day. So he has just 10 minutes or 15 minutes per patient, and he's an excellent prescriber. And he's such an inspiration, because he shares and he guides so openly and open-heartedly, and he gives a lot of what he knows, which he's gleaned over the years. And just this week when we had a conversation, and I was saying that, do you believe that there's only one constitutional for one person over their lifetime? He says, no, I don't think that that is possible, because as a science also, we are learning more and more, and a lot of things are getting clarified. And people also learn and they adapt and they change, and there are circumstances that come from outside, sudden events that leave a deep impact in your life. And this kind of situation wherein World Health Organization has called this pandemic the largest psychological experiment to happen worldwide. I think 2/3 of the world's population is taking part in this experiment right now. So these kind of events change your perception. They change the way that you respond, the way that one reacts. So I think it would change somebody's constitutional also, because somebody can get a panic disorder, or and might be more prone to anxiety if they hear, because on a daily basis, you see, we're being bombarded with a lot of information that comes in. So many number of deaths and so many things. The number of recoveries, the number of people who have improved, done well, are not highlighted. So so he was saying that, you have to have an open mind, understand that circumstances can change, somebody's remedy can change. And most importantly, he said, who are we to say that this person would need only this remedy throughout their life? He says, if something else can make them better, and if something else can make them more productive. And he quoted 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗶𝗁𝗲, and he says that 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗶𝗁𝗲 says that, there's not one single remedy for a person, and that, person going through their life, learning their lessons, might require and benefit from different remedies. It can be a layer that can be removed, a miasmatic layer that can be removed. And as you learn your lessons, now we understand that over the years, that a little bit of spirituality has also come into all our practice. We understand that there are lessons that we have to learn, and we don't say it very lightly now, like we used to perhaps 10 years ago. So now we understand that once those lessons are learned, those states lift, and we are seeing that in our patients. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does a lot. The last homeopaths I talked with, they were all pointing out that it is very important to understand the subconscious patterns.
Yes.
To really prescribe and really understand the client. So what did you see during the lockdown time in India in your clients that went into depression? Was there a certain pattern that was more often than others?
Yes. So I saw two kinds of symptom sets, let's call it. One was somebody who'd been very well up to that point of time, doing quite well, and coming across something that happened because of this lockdown, which affected their life very deeply and very suddenly. So, they would need something that the situation brought on. And so the prognosis for them is far better, and they needed something. So either, the spouse being away, getting caught in another country and not being able to make it, or worry for their parents or other loved ones, and or just being there's one of my clients who would travel very frequently for her work, 20 days a month. She would be out. So suddenly being at home, brought on so much anxiety that how things will change. Will this be the way that our life is going to be? And there's another set of patients in whom already, we were struggling. We could see that there is a heavy genetic predisposition towards being very moody and towards being uh, very blue, so to say. And already they were struggling with, we had seen over the last 5 years that if there is some stress that would come, it would get very magnified in them. So the roots of developing a sort of depression was already there in them. So one is an exogenous and one is an endogenous, we would say. So in these patients we saw that what we had expected, that there is this tendency to be a little melancholic or moody or blue, as we would call it. This exacerbated. So then previously, if they would say, I had a patient who used to say that no, this is fine, just help me for my physical symptoms, and you could see that this person is a little melancholic, a little tendency to have, and you filed it away in the back of your mind. And so then when this situation began, and we had a conversation where I said that so far I have done only a horizontal study of your life, and I have prescribed, and you've done very well, like a bryonia has helped you, or some other remedy has helped you. But now I said I have to understand a vertical study of your life, because these seeds were already there, and now it has come out. Your tendency to be melancholic has come out now. You're unable to wake up in the morning, you're unable to face the day, you dread facing the day. I said, now we have to understand this. This comes as a good opportunity for you, for us to help you better. So both the patients, both the different sets of symptoms you understood, and both the different sets of symptoms you understood, and you prescribe for them. This is what we saw as far as depression is concerned in this particular lockdown. And more importantly, we also, because holistically we see what all is necessary, we stress the importance of getting regular exercise. So I said to the lady who used to travel that, you have to take this as an opportunity to bond more with your family members. Maybe begin an exercise regime, eat better, sleep better, and, so then she discovered that she had much more fun with her son, for instance. So those were the benefits that we pointed out, and that's how we managed that. And she didn't receive many frequent doses, whereas this person who had already the seeds of depression, or you could say a kind of a melancholia, or a tendency to be blue, so this person received 1 m and of the medicine, and more frequently every week, till she could wake up in the morning with a little enthusiasm, didn't dread facing the day. But I explained that that because this is a part of her genetic makeup, so to say, or a part of her constitution, so to say, to have a tendency to this melancholia, that we would have to work much much more on her state. So this is how we separate the two symptoms that are there, and two sets of patients whom we have. And I hope that answers that.
Yes, answers the question. What was your, let's say, most extraordinary case in depression? What was the case where you really opened your heart and said, wow, that's it. That's the minimum of the minimum. This was the case.
Yeah, so this was this patient that I was talking about, who had over the last year had a lot of joint complaints, sometimes right, sometimes left, but usually on the right side, and it would get frozen, and it would prevent her from doing her creative work. And she was homebound. So last time she had an exacerbation in February, I sent across medicines to her just before the lockdown started, and Bryonia really helped her, because she kept talking about her work and her need to do work, and the fact that the business was at a standstill, and she had to pay her employees, and how would she do it, and very stiff and painful, extending up to the fingers, and also a little bit pain on the right hip. So based on this, and her desire to drink a lot of water, and heart pressure ameliorated, I sent her Bryonia, and it really helped her. In within by the third day, her pain was much better. So just a few days ago, she again reached out to me, and this was the conversation I had with her. I said that so far, horizontal analysis has helped, but if the pains are coming back again, like if your right shoulder is again bad and again you had become better and it's worse, I said that we have to understand kind of a vertical analysis of your life and what's happening, and if you would be open to that, and then let's try and find something better for you. So we set up an appointment and she started speaking, and she said that, for the first time because of this lockdown, I'm actually living for myself. So I said, because last time that you had said that, business is bad and that, you finding it tough to stay at home. She said, yes, I love travel. I want to break free from this. And this opportunity to be at home has given me a lot of insight, and I'm able to see very clearly that I was under my mother's influence all these years. And I just couldn't think for myself. And she said I was so well trained that I would do everything she expected of me. And I didn't know that I could say no, and that her influence was so strong on me that if she would say you have to eat this and this and this, I was brought up like that. So she says up to 15, up to the age of 15, I was brought up very differently by my father. When I was 15, my father died, and suddenly I had to grow up and take responsibility of my mother, her well-being, her moods. And but I was under her thumb, under her influence. She had trained me very well. I was the way a slave or a child or a militant is trained. I was trained like that. And she said that you have to eat this, you have to eat it, you can't. So I saw somebody who was under the strong influence of somebody all these years. She said, as a result of that, I'm not free, and I'm not able to, fly. I'm not able to, and she said it very casually, I'm not able to fly. All the growth that I should have done as a person for myself in my 20s and 30s, I have not been able to do. And she said, now I'm 51, and I'm seeing that I'm still under this. At least this lockdown has made it possible for me not to go and visit her every day, and to say no, and not to have to live her wishes, and to be for myself, and to reduce a little of this responsibility on my shoulders, she said. And um, she said, I just want to travel. I want to walk on the beach. I want to live by myself, probably in a seaside town, work only as much as I want, and the rest of the day be free to maybe catch a fish, cook it, speak to my daughter, take care of my dog. And so the other thing that's happening is her dog is very ill, and she's not able to let go of her dog. So the dog has a big growth, huge growth in his mouth, and she's literally lifting the 15-year-old dog, cleaning him, and he bleeds. And she says that I feel his presence, I feel his energy is there for me, and I know that it's not the right time to let him go, but at the same time I don't want to be selfish, that I'm holding on to him and not letting him go to the other world. So this is the situation in her life. And just from bryonia, and horizontally what we were understanding, vertically we understood somebody who's not been able to fly, somebody who's not been able to take care of her ambitions, somebody who's been under the influence of some stronger person whom she cannot say any no to, and who's lost her childhood innocence, and hasn't lived for herself in many many years. And last year she had a heart attack, and 2 stents were put. And she says, I'm somebody who eats all the time. I can keep eating, but I want to eat what I want. I don't want to eat what my mother says. So I didn't have the remedy with me, but I have ordered it. But I told her immediately that you will come to know when you have to let your dog go. And that she said, but it's a lot of responsibility, but him I have to take care because he's like my father. He's there with me, and he tracks my every movement with his eyes, and he's so active, I can see. And she cooks so much for the dog and takes care of him. And she and the dog and one cat they have a very nice relationship. So I could see this tubercular element of wanting to be free and wanting to travel and wanting to do what she wants, and not being able to do that because under somebody's domination and influence. And it was so nice to see that bird themes come through. And so she says I was trained very well. So because of that, when I was going through all the bird themes, I saw this Falco peregrinus domesticate, disciplinatus. The name itself, I didn't know that the full name has disciplinatus in it. So it's a trained falcon that is, uh,
Yeah.
the
Ready to catch.
It's trained from a very young age, kept separately. So she spoke about this one place where her grandfather had given her a small cubby hole in his house. It's like a secret compartment. She says that her grandfather used to tell her that whenever the world is too much, just go inside that cubby hole and lock yourself. And she says there my imagination would take flight. So it's so beautiful that you're prescribing. So again, the conversation that not one remedy is needed. Multiple remedies are needed depending upon your viewpoint, also your perspective also at that point. And how it's very important to have what Dr. Mahesh Gandhi says, an overview. He always says you have to have an overview, and you have to zoom out, and you have to see what are the circumstances at that time. And of course Brianna helped her for that moment in time, but for lasting improvement to be there for her diabetes, for her heart complaints, and for everything else, her place in life. So should she continue her business, or should she move with her daughter and travel for, and she's also at crossroads in a relationship. She doesn't want to get married again. She says that I don't want to be in that situation again where somebody else is deciding for me whether I should do this or that, should I travel, should I not travel. And very strangely for an Indian woman, she's in a relationship where she says to her boyfriend that you can come and live with me, but you can't occupy too much space in my house. So you have to go back to your house when it's too much for me. I need my space. So she's trying to understand what to do with her relationship, what to do with her responsibility towards her mother, where the line is drawn. So it was a very moving learning experience for me, that here I had a conversation that one remedy is not going to be enough for somebody's life. And here parallelly, I learned about this years of domination that she had for her mother. She says, my mother takes care of herself very well, but me, she has trained incredibly well. So she says, now I can get work done from someone, but my own self, I'm not able to take care. So I just hope that this remedy gives her the freedom to decide what's best for her soul, and to keep the dog, or to let the dog go, because he has a huge growth, and she doesn't want to let him go. She feels that it would not be right, but at the same time she's torn between this tug of war, these responsibilities which bind her down towards family, towards her pets, and the other wanting to be with her daughter, moving to another city so that there's a relaxed pace of life, but not able to make that change. So she says, I know. She says, now I need you to take over my health. If you say I will eat in a particular way. Now she's looking for a replacement. So I need to also be very careful that, our relationship that we have, the transaction that we have is a gentle one, and that I'm not imposing my will on her, so that it's much more holistic. So that's another note I make to myself, saying that I don't want to replace her mother in her life, and I want the remedy to do everything. So I don't want, I'm just the messenger who brings the remedy. I'm not the person who does the healing. This is another thing that this year, we are more and more and more, we are learning that we are not the doers at all. At that point, that energy comes up, and we are just somebody who transfers the medicine or the remedy to the patient, and the remedy does everything. So one of my colleagues said a very beautiful thing when her patient thanked her. She said, "It's not me that does, it's homeopathy that does." So she says that I say this again and again and again, just to reinforce to myself also that the ego should be lower, and the act of holistically doing for somebody with a very good intention should be higher. So it really um, made a lot of sense to me, and it was a very nice message. So in the same week I had these two conversations. It was very nice.
I can understand that. So, as you're a specialist in materia medica and you're specialized in depression, did you see those trained birds often in clients who have depression?
Did I see what?
The disciplined birds, like disciplined eagles, disciplined falcons, even disciplined owls, there are. And it's, I'm as a former vet, I know what hard training for the bird that is.
Yes.
And that the psyche of the bird gets crippled. It really gets crippled. And they have to fly with these banderoles on so that the falconer can get them back. And it's always, it's a life, and it's an imprisoned life in reality, even if they are allowed to fly. So I just wonder whether there's a correlation in these remedies and clients who suffer from mental disorder.
Right. Very good question. So first of all, I'm not an expert in materia medica. I just love materia medica a lot. And secondly, I live in a place, actually, I've had the opportunity to prescribe only 2 or 3 bird remedies. I think with my understanding improving this year, perhaps I could have missed a couple of bird remedies previously. And I just hope that when I get an opportunity to retake some of the cases, that I'm able to see the bird themes clearer. And I live in an area, it's very interesting really that you should ask this question, that you're a vet, you said. So I live in an area where there's a lot of trees and there's a lot of greenery, and there are mountains behind where I stay. And I get a lot of these big birds which get injured, and which we find here. So over the last 4-5 years, I've had opportunities to actually help several Indian kites. The name of the bird is Milvus migrans, the great Indian kite. And they are like eagles, quite big, almost the size of a duck. And oftentimes when they're flying, and people fly kites, and the kite strings have glass, and they have their plastic strings which are used. So we have a festival in December, Jan, where a lot of the kites are flown, and these aerial, these big birds, they get caught in those kite strings. And I've had opportunity to actually help 4 or 5 Indian kites. So they fall, and oftentimes a portion of, it's not cut very deeply, but then it injures I think the air sacs which are there. So the first remedy I normally give is aconite. And then with my colleagues' help, we discovered that gunpowder is actually one of the best remedies for them. So once aconite is done, then the face of the shock, and the staring look, and the shock, and the fear is over. And we normally keep them in a box, away from cats, away from the stray cats. And we normally give gunpowder 6x 3 times a day or 4 times a day. And by the third or fourth day, they recover enough to fly away. So gunpowder, because of the explosive nature, I think, of the nitricum, it really matches their explosive speeds that they have. So they're real birds, we've done. Uh, 4 or 5 kites we have helped, and there was one owl that actually got caught in the string, and patiently waited for, I think, 8 hours for us to find the end of the string and cut it down and bring it. And aconite really helped that. It was a very small owl. Indian owls are very small. So I see a lot of owls, and I see a lot of the great Indian kite here. Apart from that, with small birds we don't get, but birds in my patients, yes. So the other remedy that I've prescribed of the high flying birds is actually 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗃𝗃𝗃. So I had a patient who had an eye complaint. She had glaucoma, and again the story was very similar to this lady of who is going to get 𝗕𝘂𝗃𝗃. uh, she had to take care of her father had just passed away, and she and her father had a very troubled relationship. They used to be very aggressive and face off to each other, because she thought that he was actually expecting her to be in a particular way, and her father had recently suddenly passed away, and she was still coming to terms with that. And her mother, she had to take care of her full time, and her mother was a little difficult, as old people can be, but she was finding it very difficult. And as a result of that, she had developed increased intraocular pressure, and they were talking about performing a surgery. And she said, I cannot let anybody touch, because she's an author, and she writes about Krishna, and his the lessons that the life of Krishna, Lord Krishna, has taught. And she was in the middle of that book. So for her to take care of her mother and responsibilities was very tough. And she says, these are the strings that bind us to the she says, I never wanted to be a traditional Indian wife tied to the kitchen sink. And these are the ties and the binds that the strings that bind us to the family. And I want to be free, and to do what I want. And she wanted this need for freedom was so strong that she only has a first name. She doesn't even want her husband's last name to be a string in her name. So and and her husband, she said, the first thing I discussed with him was that I will not take your last name, I will not take my father's last name, I just want my name. And so it was very interesting, really. And she said that we used to face off like dogs, she and her father. So the connection that these disciplined birds have with dogs is also, they have a very deep, strong connection, because dogs are also used to train them. I think dogs are made to be there alongside them so that they can get used to the presence of the dog. And also the lure which is there, it's like a mass of belts, and it has weights, so that they throw the lure, and the bird has to come and land on that. And there are weights to actually hold them down, so
Yes.
that they get used to that. And so when I was researching on this remedy, 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗃𝗃𝗃, because of the eye complaints, I came to 𝗕𝘂𝗃𝗃, because it is for those high flying birds, the acuity of vision is the most important symptom, most important characteristic that they have. And not wanting to be tied down, and she spoke of responsibilities that were like ties, tying her to the kitchen sink. So she got 𝗕𝘂𝗃𝗃𝗃 in 1M, but it was, for her, she found it is very strange, actually. Her mother didn't expect her to take care of to be taken care of, but she felt a strong responsibility towards her mother, and she felt a strong guilt and a strong difficulty in letting go of her father. So she says that it's tough, really. These ties bind us, and I'm not able to let go of my father still. And but for her, it was very important to assert her will. So her father might have been a very mild mannered person. We don't know, but she experienced him as somebody who forced her to, be in a particular way, and somebody who was imposing his will and trying to
Mhm.
dominate her. So yes, so um, this kind of tone between needing to please, and needing to exert her own will, and the 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 limit between that, they're taking on too much. And she had a book coming out, she had responsibilities. And so yes, if it had gone forward, she was saying that I will never take allopathy. So she had not taken any of the allopathic glaucoma remedies. She said, because if how can an external medicine only take care of my eye or only take care of my blood pressure? She said, without understanding me as a person, how can this system work? She was saying. So it was good for me that she was referred and she came, and she's doing very well. The book came out, and she brought her dog also
Mhm.
to be taken care. Her dog also had cancer, and her dog got tuja, and had a lot of leukorrhea, and some ovarian uterine cancer. And she brought the dog in her arms, and the dog passed away. And in her house, the stray dogs could come and go. They were free, so she didn't have her gate shut. uh, so she said that it's very important to understand that they have a will, and if they want, they will stay with me. If they want, they will leave. So she had, again, a very deep relationship with her dogs. A very She was very sad to let her dog be put down. So very interesting, really, that the storyline of the dominated animals, whether be it a dog who has to can't exert his own will and is under domination, and these high flying birds also. And one other bird remedy I have given is aramakaw, for this lady who again had a difficult relationship with her mother. She Her mother used to expect her to be in a particular way, and she had just recently given birth to her first child. She didn't want to be in the hospital to give birth to him. She said, because they take over completely, and I didn't want to be in a hospital setup. And she had somebody come in from Sweden or Belgium, or some midwife
Yeah.
came, and it's highly unusual in India. It can never happen. It's very strange. So the midwife came and lived with her, and she had a water birth at home. And she said that, but I found her energy more softer, not as aggressive as these two. If I compare their energies, she was also on a spiritual quest. So she's a healer, and she has a very nice relationship with her cats. She has three cats living at home, and they have the run of the place. And with this giving birth and everything, her relationship with her mother had worsened. So she says that as a child, I was not allowed to speak. So I had to take permission to speak. And for me to communicate with my mother was very important. So when her mother would be angry with her, she would go and stand in the same room as her mother and write, I am sorry, on the wall, because she was not allowed to speak. So
No.
she would be there and she would say that, I wrote, I am sorry so many times, hoping that my mother saw it and, forgave me and allowed me to speak. So for her to be able to speak, and to what is the right way to take care of her child, and wanting to communicate with her spouse and with her mother-in-law who was helping her and with her mother, was very important. So she got Aramakau. So this wanting to speak what is inside, to speak one's truth and to decide, is very important, the thread that runs through all the three remedies. And this kind of melancholia, this deep sadness, and which is suppressed. They're not sure whether they can show it outside. They want permission to be able to show that. And in the first case, because her father had died and her mother was not allowing her to, so she kept everything inside and she said, I lived for my mother. In the second case of the lady with the glaucoma, her father had died, so there was nobody to show to her true self to, and she had to take responsibility of her mother. And in the third case, she had everything her way, but with the new baby coming and everything being new, and she being a young mother, she didn't want to continue the same relationship with her mother, where she has to ask permission to speak. And so softer energy, but still that needing to speak what is inside came out very strongly. And in her house, because I had gone to uh, for her 3-day-old son, she wanted to start homeopathy from the beginning. She didn't want to vaccinate, she didn't want to do anything. So again, one more decision that she had taken, where she had to actually stand against everybody else at home.
Yeah.
She didn't want to vaccinate her son, so I had to make a home visit. So I found a very soft energy in her place, lot of crystals and lot of cats everywhere. And she was so anxious and so frightened and so uh, almost like a panic. She was almost in a panic. So she also settled down, and her son is now a year and a half old, and so it was another good remedy. So the similarity that I see between the three of them is needing to speak their own truth without worrying what will happen, and uh, learning to say that, um, drawing limits.
Yeah.
Because of the cancer miasm, I think, uh, drawing a line in the sand and saying that beyond this I won't be able to do. And you cannot make me feel guilty if I don't eat how much you want me to eat, she said. So that space, reclaiming their voice, reclaiming their space, reclaiming their power in a relationship, not allowing others to dominate, and making the right decisions at the right time so that they can regain their freedom. These are the themes that I saw, that if they would have been very unhappy, I'm sure, going forward because of this, not able, I think the remedy allows them to uh, reclaim that energy for themselves, just so that, if going forward, then it can make you almost they're such strong individuals inside that if their flight is stopped, I think they would be almost melancholic or maybe even suicidal. So
I
the
would say,
depression
yeah,
can go very deep.
could go very deep,
Yes.
as it
So,
does in birds sometimes. They just kill themselves.
yes. Yes. And another case that I understood in retrospect, where I had not prescribed, but that lady would have probably done very well on a bird remedy, but I have no way of knowing, is somebody who passed away actually 8-9 years ago, when I didn't know anything about bird remedies. And she was someone who had spent her entire life being somebody else's assistant, and not and being a very timid person, and uh, allowing that person to decide everything for her. And she would always keep her hand in, on front of her mouth when she spoke. She would not even laugh fully, and she was very unhappy. But I didn't know, she was very timid, very soft, very doing the same thing every day, and very regimented way of working, very unhappy, with a husband who was an alcoholic, who had never held a job all his life, and she was the breadwinner, but she was working under this person. She could never leave that job. So she got pancreatic cancer. So when I came across this remedy, this the common hen, I don't know the name, the remedy name, Galine, from that Galliformis, from that the hen, so this industrial farming, doing the same thing every day on a regimented basis. not having your own voice. And she had three sons. She didn't want to have children, and of course she got pregnant, so she had to have them. And so her husband, didn't support even. I don't think even would have given her 1 rupee all their life.
Oh my.
So she was the one who managed, and he used to. He had this addiction for online gambling and gambling otherwise, and so. So when I recently came across this information when I was researching, I just remembered that case where she used to find it so difficult to even speak. She should keep her hand in front of her mouth, and she underwent this entire thing all her life, and so unhappy inside, broken. So broken is a very strong theme that comes up in that. And I was very disappointed that this remedy could have helped her, when she was there, and I knew of it. And but it's a learning.
It's a learning, and it always is fate in between. Sometimes things just can't happen.
Yes, so understanding the limits of myself, understanding that I cannot know everything all the time, understanding that there are, therapeutic limitations. Also, these are the lessons. I think we are, like I said, we are on a spiritual more path this year. I think from last year. So last year also, personally, I saw homeopathy help. My father was not well, and again in last stage of cancer, and it had come back, and we didn't want chemotherapy, and homeopathy gave such a dignified exit. So for me, I'm just so indebted, so honored that homeopathy could give him that dignified exit, and the pain was managed very well. And of course, the metastasis was all over the body. So, but more than morphine, the patch which they had applied, homeopathy helped faster. And somebody with liver cancer being at home, lucid, being able to speak till the end, almost till 72 hours before his passing away, was amazing. It's a lot of remedies: curcuma longa, crotalis, lycopodium, aconite for the arsenic, carbo veg, a lot of remedies. So we had to keep understanding what symptoms came up and prescribing as per the symptoms, keeping him comfortable for the day, maybe sometimes giving 200 twice, thrice a day, maybe giving 1 m. We used to put 1 m under his tongue. And finally, it was aconite that actually took care of the fear of death, approaching death. And it's an amazing remedy. And I'm just
it's amazing what homeopathy can do.
Yes, I'm just so thankful to everything that therapeutics that homeopathy has. It's such an important integral part of our life, and it's the bedrock of our belief. We think there is much more to do, much more to learn, and I just hope that like autism. The family members doing exceedingly well. The school has called to say that there has been such a remarkable change in this family member. So we're just so thankful, so full of gratitude in what homeopathy can do.
This whole lockdown resembles the remedies for of the birds. So
yes,
maybe we are going to get a few bird cases or many bird cases according to the lockdown and the great pressure that is exaggerated upon the people.
That's
and
right.
Just now, before we started talking, you told me that the lockdown procedure is even going on in Mumbai?
Yes.
Yes, please tell me.
As you know, Mumbai is a very small, landmass is very small, and the number of people are very high.
Yeah.
So I believe somewhere around 24 to 26 million people live here, if I have my numbers right. So in an area which is like Manhattan, if you can imagine so many people, the congregation or the density of people being very high, And this being the COVID-19 being something that is transmitted because of close proximity and the fomites, we still haven't been able to get ahead of the numbers, although people are recovering. So to make sure that and given the fact that it's the monsoon season, and usually around this time, in spite of a lot of efforts, sometimes we can have the mix of really heavy rain and high tides happening. So when that happens, the sheer volume of rainwater which happens, because this being the thick of the monsoons in July and August is when you have really heavy monsoons. When that happens, you have a lot of the overflowing happening, flooding happening on the streets, and the sewage system is just barely able to keep up. And when that mix happens with high tides, probably full moon, and heavy rains continuously for more than 10-12 hours, we have a little bit of a situation happening in Mumbai. The local trains which ferry people to work and back home, as you know, a lot of people live outside Mumbai and they come into Mumbai by taking the train to travel, and the trains actually are working at more than full capacity. So the possibility of social distancing there is really not there, because you really have people standing back to back and traveling to work and traveling back again. Oftentimes the tracks get flooded, but these people still, that's the spirit of Mumbai, they call it. But in medical terms, in preventive medicine terms, it's a nightmare. It's every possible scenario, coming together. So you have overcrowding, you have people already stressed and, trying to get back to work. And most of the jobs are now paying salaries. So they're requesting people to come back or expecting people to be back. So, to avoid all this, what has happened is that the local trains are still not running at full capacity. We just have people who, like your healthcare workers and doctors there, that they have allowed with special passes to enter the trains. And, other offices, they're asking them to take the road transport. So you have a lot of traffic jams also happening. It's not a very pleasant situation. But this is the spirit of the city. People are always on the go, the city that doesn't sleep, and all the other romantic terms that you have about it. But in this particular COVID period, it's a very practical and very right step that they've taken. The government has taken that, the lockdown is going to be extended. We have a lot of festivals that come up in August. So you have Lord Krishna's birth, and then you have these human pyramids that happen, and there's something strung up there, and they try and go and get it, and usually it's raining, and so Lord Krishna's birthday. Then you have a lot of these festivals. August, September, October, November is when the thick of all the Indian festivals happen. You have your Navratri. Navratri is a huge gathering. Again, you have dances that happen, group traditional dances that happen every night for 9 nights and all over the city. And then Diwali is the festival of lights that happens later on. So, August is just the beginning with Lord Ganesha's birthday begins. And you have the Krishna's festival before that. So a lot of these festivals where people gather together will most probably be postponed or not allowed. Gatherings will not be allowed, because it's not going to be possible to get ahead of this unless we do that.
Yeah.
People have a need to socialize. Most of the old people, my old patients whom I'm speaking to, the geriatric age group, they're finding it very difficult to be home, because being out, going to the temple, meeting their own age group, that desire to socialize is ingrained in us as human beings. So I was speaking to a couple of my patients last week. Most of them are saying that, it's tough being at home, and they have various aches and pains. It looks like flu, but it's not flu. And but I know that it's just because they are not being able to socialize, they're not being able to go out, meet their friends, talk to them, interact with them. That generation is not used to speaking on the phone or sending messages. So
Yes.
the need to meet friends, and being locked in for over 100 days now. So it's and that age group is not allowed to go out for essentials also. So And most of these women have taken over households. They're managing the entire household while the daughter-in-law, the daughter travels to work on a daily basis. So they have a particular place at home. They're running entire households and managing their older husbands or ill husbands, and managing the grandchildren and taking them in the evenings while the daughter or the daughter-in-law travels to work and comes back quite late. So it's very tough for them to have them at home, not being able to go out, and their space is taken up, so they're not feeling free. So that corresponds very well with the tubercular kind of oppressiveness also that they're feeling. So this lady got 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗶𝗲𝗃 because although she's very cheerful otherwise, this time has been very tough for her. She's not able to meet her friends. She's not able to go out. She wants to support, at home, the other family members, but she doesn't feel happy inside. So some sort of vague aches and pains, pain in the necks, pain in the shoulder, some, little pins and needles and things, and responded very well to 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗶𝗃𝗃. So those kind of oppressive tubercular remedies are coming up now because it's an unusual situation. You can't have people sitting at home like this, and you can't have them going out. Youngsters might be able to take a risk, but that age group will not be able to take risks and go out and meet their friends. So little blood pressure goes up, little asthma-like symptoms, maybe an irritating cough, not able to speak what they want, and those kind of vague symptoms are coming up. So you understand that it's more psychosomatic. It's not really anything to do with, it's a very situational thing that's happening. And
it's
then
anger and sadness expressing itself.
And also not being able to speak, not being able to go out. Even although it's not a very interesting weather for meeting people, at the temple it's a nicer place. It's more like a kind of a situation wherein you can sit, socializing is allowed in the pretext of going and praying there. So you have a big area, a big courtyard there where all these women, they sit and they exchange, what have you cooked today and what are you planning for the festival and how are you and what's happening and how's your husband's diabetes, and that kind of, it's a much more socializing opportunity for them that they're lacking.
I understand.
So this is what we are seeing, and it looks like it will be extended up to August 14th. So we have a couple of festivals coming up again in that period. So they want to make sure that all these festive occasions we avoid them. So then what happens with local businesses when festive opportunities come is that people tend to spend. This is the spending period of the year. So then local businesses that are now just staggering back to pre-COVID numbers will also be hit. So, and just the essentials, people are just going to buy food and your groceries, but they're not going to be buying, say, an appliance or buying gold or buying silver or buying a new sari, for instance. So local businesses will also suffer. They're saying that it looks like 2020 is pretty much written off, and it's only in 2021 because Diwali at the end of the year is also a huge festival. The markets are amazingly busy at this time, and generally most shops make the the entire quarter's money in that in that one season. People generally buy, gift. So all that is going to be down this year. So for somebody for whom shopping is nice, or being able to gift somebody something is a habit that makes them feel good, this season is going to be quite tough for them. So, and for somebody who travels for work, so I have a couple of patients who travel very routinely outside India for work. It frees them in a way that which is very similar to what a hammer malady or a bird remedy or a phosphorus kind of tubercular thing. It satisfies their desire to travel and be away, and also gives them an opportunity to maybe for a bird remedy to spread their wings, literally go places. So I know of a couple of my patients who travel for work abroad maybe several times a month, and more than the work part of it, they enjoy adding 2 days as a getaway, maybe somewhere close by, So if you're traveling to France, then, Paris, then you take a 2-day getaway into the countryside, you visit some other smaller thing, and it's work and leisure together. So for those people also, it's proving to be very tough, because it's not going to be easy. Pretty much 2020, international travel is also written off. So I can only imagine that, being stuck at home and, being locked in, and there's only a certain limit to, or a repetitiveness to, what you would be able to do in a day. And, everybody else's schedules are going on almost, but you can't travel. And there is only so many meetings that you can do on Zoom. And then, it kind of gets to you. You tend to get depressed and wanting to meet people, and you can't really go out for a drive. You could, but then it depends. You need to apply for a pass to travel between cities, and then you have to cite a reason why you need that pass, and then the police check, so whether you're from a containment zone or not. So, and then you could go. So it's very tough on many aspects.
It's the same here.
Mm.
It's economic depression because the tourists
Yes.
are not coming.
Yes.
People are not going on holiday. They don't dare because they're afraid of quarantine. And even I don't dare to travel from Greece to my parents in Germany because I don't know whether I'm allowed to be back or not.
Correct. That's right. And also, along with the oppressiveness and this desire to reach out to people, and it's new experiences also that people are losing on. The most people travel to also broaden their mental horizons and look for newer opportunities with work, newer areas where they could expand their business, or newer avenues, or maybe a side business that adds to your income. So all these avenues are now, this year, they cannot be explored. So new avenues cannot be explored either. So you have to just make do with what you have and not feel frustrated within that. And it's a tough ask. So creativity is also hampered because there's only so much new things that you can do with what you have. So creativity is also being is a tough call for a lot of people.
It's suppressed, definitely.
For teachers also, and a lot of professionals whose work involves conducting yoga classes maybe, or an aerobics class, or people that routinely go out to work out. We have in our community quite a few people who run. They take part in marathons and they're training every day. These people find it very tough because they have to train, and then they can't go beyond a certain limit, and so there's a cordon, 2-kilometer cordon beyond which you can't go. So you can't be found on the other side. So for somebody who's used to just running for 10 kilometers, it's very tough to run around in the same circles again and again. Again, restriction,
like a dog running in circles.
Absolutely restricted and hindered and hampered, and no freedom. And so it's generally, the situation is like that. It's extremely frustrating. So I really wonder about the long-term implications of this, because I was reading a report that said that the World Health Organization has understood this as the largest psychological experiment happening globally. 3/4 or more than 70%, 75% of the global population is taking part in this experiment, wherein, they can't go out, and there's an organism that they can't understand or they can't fathom, and that's affecting you. And, you could sneeze, but you can't really touch your face or something. And then you're all at home, and businesses are shut, schools are shut. So the long-term implications of this, they're actually doing a study. And I suppose in New York also, there's a group that's doing this study that initially went and surveyed people in the first few weeks of the lockdown. There was a lot of enthusiasm, and there was a lot of happiness that this was a new way to work, and that from home, and that you didn't have to travel to work, and you didn't have to keep your strict routine that a lot of people traveling, say in Mumbai or New York, have to. And they were very happy with this, and they said that I hope it continues. And then these same people, when they were surveyed in the third week of the lockdown, the enthusiasm had really gone down, more than 50%, and more anxiety had come up, actually, because the situation also, it affects your health, the health of your family, your job security, and also your ability to earn so that you can eat. So, your food, clothing, shelter, job security, health of your family, health of your loved ones, it really hits at the each tier of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So that is why the interest was there in studying this as a phenomenon that's going to have long-term implications on people, countries, businesses, because they were also studying about the initial phases would be like, of recovery would probably be like first aid, and little bit going forward it will be like maybe certain portions of businesses you can stop. But for smaller business or individual owned businesses, oftentimes the third or fourth month, which we're in now, is going to be a period of amputation. You're going to have to look very clearly at whether you can sustain this business going forward, or take your losses and make sure that you have enough money to sustain you and your family for the next couple of months of the year, because it's going to be really tough going forward. So really it is impacting, one would say. I don't suppose the World Health Organization said that they don't suppose that such a event had occurred in my parents' generation either. So even from the Second World War, no generation has ever encountered such an event where people, businesses, countries are being forced to look at things in a very panic-driven, anxiety-driven state. So there is a great possibility of this event creating a kind of like a post-traumatic stress disorder also in people. Going forward 6 months, maybe, and maybe next year, you're going to have a lot of panic attacks people coming up with, and not understanding how to get back to things when things open up. And perhaps they are also saying in India that there could be a resurgence in the winter months, because November, December, Jan is not very cold in weather terms, but then generally people tend to stay much more indoors. So it's going to be tough.
I understand. We even saw impacts in animals. There are indoor cats in Austria and Germany, and they are used to that their holders go out, go for work, and then come back. And some of the holders actually saw that the cats got very annoyed with them, as they were in home office for many months now. The cats wanted their own space.
Absolutely. I understand what that would be like, So they share their space with us. So when we leave for work, they actually have their spots at home, and most houses have a cat feeding machine or something like that. And it must be really tough for them to give up their space for us. Yeah. Although they're saying that the dogs are much happier because they understand, and the owner or the parent is always there with them at home. So they're having a nice time. And generally in summer, one would travel, probably leave the pet at a pet hostel. So, the dogs must be really happy to spend more time with us.
Yeah, the cats were not. Most cats were not. Those who are free to go in and out, for them it's the same. But those who are caged in the house, actually, they are traumatized as well.
Absolutely. And with all this kind of spraying that's happening, there's a lot of panic-driven spraying of a lot of disinfectants happening. These might affect our, the cats and the dogs that go in and come out, because then, the skin absorbs. So they were thinking of putting up a disinfecting tent in our building, so where I live, so that when you go out and you come back and you get sprayed all over. but then they kind of shot down the idea, because for somebody who has a very sensitive respiratory system, it might in fact be quite bad to be in one of those tents. So rather they said that we will focus on getting maybe the elevators cleaned and the passageways cleaned. So it is really, a lot of you don't really understand what's the right decision to make, because most of these decisions are based on panic or an expectation that things will get worse, and maybe a hurry to look for solutions immediately, or that things will suddenly escalate. So the media is not really helping, because they're all focusing on numbers of people falling ill every day, but not really numbers of people who are recovering and becoming all right. So homeopathic colleagues here are also seeing a lot of patients, distributing remedies, camphor, 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗲𝗲𝗲, brina, eupatorium. A lot of remedies are being distributed, and even mass, even otherwise tuberculinum is being given. There's a doctor colleague of mine who's doing a study by giving tuberculinum and keeping track of those 2,000, 3,000 people. So
in the sense of homeoprophylaxis?
As a homeoprophylaxis, yes. And also symptomatically, a lot of my colleagues are prescribing. I've prescribed for a couple of patients, when the anxiety comes and they don't really understand what to do. So there I've prescribed. And in another city, I had a couple of my patients who fell ill and they were COVID positive. And based on just the tiredness and the anxiety and the extreme, almost collapse-like situation, I had asked them to take 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗲𝗲𝗲𝗲𝗲, and by day 3 they were much better. And the mother needed mother and son fell ill, so the mother needed phosphoric acid phos to finish getting better, but the son was much better with 𝗕𝗓𝗲. So they haven't really tested themselves again. The government is also not able to decide whether to do the testing again, whether to wait, whether to go ahead symptomatically, not to do. So so practically speaking, as long as they're better, I said, okay, so don't waste another test, because the number of tests are also very limited in each city. So you can't really spend it on checking whether the person who's COVID positive is now COVID negative. So they're just waiting, but they're much better. So in India, a lot of our colleagues are doing much more work than I am, and getting very good results. And homeoprophylaxis is being done. Actual COVID positive patients are being helped. So a lot of work is being done as far as the homeopathy part of things are concerned.
So today we are talking more about the bird remedies. Because a lot of people don't really know them. And correct. I would appreciate very much if you could just explain what are the difference in the bird remedies. And personal question was whether the bird albatross is tested or not yet.
Yes, I got your email. I do remember this 𝗕𝗂𝗹𝗲𝗲𝗲𝗲𝗲𝗲𝗲𝗲 I do remember reading a proving of it either in the Links magazine, or perhaps it was in the homeopathic links. So I do also incidentally remember seeing a program where they had followed an albatross, and I think it was a black-footed albatross. And most of the point where they leave the home, like with most birds, leaving the nest is a very critical period of time in their lifespan, especially for the high-flying birds, and even for a remedy like albatross, where these birds, I think the albatross spends 3 years traveling, just flying, and from one pole to the other, or really long distances, if I'm not mistaken. And so this desire to travel and following an internal GPS, so the direction is encoded, the direction that they have to take is encoded within their brains, and hence the connection with the remedies Magnetis Polus Australis and the other magnetic remedy. So they align themselves to the magnetic forces that surround the earth, which is there in the earth also, and hence they're able to navigate and travel long distances. And the stamina, the desire to travel, and also the struggles of being on that long travel. I guess these are some of the themes that I remember. I was trying to locate that article after your email to me, but I couldn't really find it. I do think that Dr. Peter Fraser is the one who has done this proving. I was trying to locate it, I couldn't find. So, with most of the bird remedies, the time that is the most critical is when the moment that they step out of the nest. The initial part of their life within the nest is really completely different from the setting foot into the outside world. So setting foot into the outside world, even in human terms and even in bird terms, is one of the most critical periods of their life. There are a lot of dangers associated. There's an unreadiness within the individual, and sometimes the situations are much more bigger than that individual can manage or can handle. So a lot of these bird remedies come under the miasmatically, also under the cancer miasm, tubercular and cancer miasm, because also this freedom, this oppression, this desire to travel, desire to spread their wings, to broaden their mental horizons, uh, uh, mentally and intellectually, and also spiritually broaden their horizon, is something which are the themes of the bird remedy. These are the themes as we understand of the bird remedies. And also along with that, like we spoke last time, a desire to communicate and being able to speak their truth and being able to say what is right in that situation, and not being forced to suppress it because of circumstances or for fear of speaking out. Is These are some of the broad themes that we saw last time also, when you and I we spoke about the two or three cases that I have. I don't have very many bird remedy cases, but these are the themes that I have seen by and large. And as far as albatross is concerned, perils of travel is something that is something that I kind of remember reading, the dangers which are there inherently in traveling. So this is one of the only other aspects that I remember. So
I just wondered because it's one of the birds who land in the sea and who
yes.
really like swimming.
Yes, but as I understand, even the black-footed albatross, when it begins its flight, initially the wings are not strong enough to support, and there are a lot of predators in the water that that can actually attack and can consume. Like there are a lot of sharks and other creatures in the water. Then there's also exhaustion that happens, because most of these birds, it could be their first flight that they have, and exhaustion can also happen with this. So this is what I remember reading. And not so long ago, I also saw a documentary where they studied and they observed the black-footed albatross trying to take its first flight, and precisely these same things happened. When the wings are not ready and the bird just drops into the water, and sometimes you can have the predators right there. So the bird has to really gather its reserves energy, and really a lot of stamina is called for to continue beating and just initially at least take off. And then afterwards, I think, like the larger birds, they rely on the air currents and don't really flap their wings, and they glide more with the ascending thermals, and then they use the thermals to ascend and descend. And this is what the albatross did afterwards. So they followed this bird for quite a while on its first maiden flight. So, and it was very interesting to watch. The bird remedies are really very interesting. So uh, it's certain homeopaths get a lot of butterfly. I have a colleague who gets a lot of butterfly cases. It just so happens that she draws that energy.
Mhm.
I have a colleague who gets a lot of salt remedies. She
Mhm.
gets a lot of mag carbs, gets a lot of silicas and 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗲𝗁𝘂𝗃𝗃 and a lot of things like that. So I have a friend who it's very interesting to also see that. So I don't really draw a lot of bird remedies, or maybe I have not. The ones that I've understood clearly, they've done really well. They've gone forward to do really well. Last time when we spoke, I was going to give this patient 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗃𝗃,
Mhm.
and I have given it to her, but it's still early days. I have not yet received a follow up from her. So
Mhm.
it would be interesting to see how the remedy helps her.
Yeah.
Last time we also spoke about the aramaka that I have given to another patient, and again I'm awaiting a follow up. So follow-ups are always very interesting to see how these issues resolve. So, but she did send a note saying that she's on a that her mother is now staying with her. So it would be very interesting because that patient has an issue with her mother and not being able to communicate. So this lockdown has brought her mother to live with her. So it would
Yes,
be
you
very
said
interesting to
that
see.
in the bird remedies, there's a lot of issue with the mother.
Yes. And family in general itself, the responsibilities which are there on the shoulder, being tied to the kitchen sink, being needing to shoulder the responsibility of maybe older parents, aged parents, um, ailing family members, extended family members, ailing pets, taking care of really older, aged, maybe ill pets. And the other person I was telling you about last time, she brought her dog in also. So they have a very close relationship with their dogs and cats. So both of them, both my patients have, their dogs got cancer, and one the patient who received buteo, she brought her dog in. The dog had cervical cancer, and she picked up the dog, and it was a very interesting situation in her house. The dogs could come and go, so they didn't really, although they were domesticated, there wasn't really a gate that closed and separated them from the outside world. So even street dogs could come in and these home dogs could go out. So in one of those situations, she had contracted a um, probably from one of the other stray dogs, something, and she'd got cervical cancer. And thuja as a remedy really helped because of the offensiveness of the discharge and the other symptoms which are there. But um, pain was managed. But after a couple of months, the dog had to be put down, and because the dogs, they're almost like family members. They speak of them as very close family members, maybe like a father or a mother or a brother, like a sibling or a parent. And for them, the pain that the animal goes through during that time is something that they cannot really bear to see. Although they're taking great care and managing, the pet, or so they're not really able to handle the emotional distress and the physical distress that the pet is also under and they are also under. So it's way too much of a burden on them after a while, and they really manage for almost up to the end. So, and then any of us would have given up a long time ago, but these bird remedies, somehow they manage to go on and they take very good care of them. And then beyond a point, they say that if I cannot sleep and if I'm not able to manage this and if this is too much, I have to, then the vet has already told them that you could have put down your pet very months ago, but they're still doing it, and they know that the situation is something that is not, will not get resolved with the health of their pet, but yet they persist and they take care. And oftentimes the pet has to be put down, and then they grieve very deeply, and the remedy helps them through all the stages to come to a to a resolution, to decide, to grieve, to overcome the grief. and the bird remedies really help them with their parents, with the pets, with the these are the main areas, because otherwise in their work they are very good. Creatively they're very good. They do extremely different things and they're very successful there. But as far as these two areas are concerned, is where they have to learn to let go, literally, and letting go is very tough for them.
I think so. I think so. Did you see the bird remedies in cultural context?
Yes, it's very interesting. In the Indian context, it begins. The roles for women and men are very strictly laid out and separated. And where I'm from the south of India, education is very important. Girls and boys are equally educated. Whereas in the north, going forward in the north, up in India, boys are treated in a slightly different, in a rather better way than girls are treated. So culturally also, the ability to ask for what is owed to you, the ability to what you're due or deserve, or the respect that is owed to you is somewhat easier in the South Indian, I find. I could be wrong, of course. I'm not saying that this divide is very strict. So, so when you do get married also, the like I was telling you in the Buteo case, this lady refused to take either her father's name after her name or her husband's name. So she said that I told him beforehand that I would not be taking his name. I did not want the string of his name attached to my name. So for her, even that was unbearable. And she found a husband, she found someone. Traditionally in that generation, the marriage would have been an arranged marriage that the parents of the family spoke and they organized, but she didn't want that. And she said, no, I'm going to do what I want, and I'm going to not take either my father's name or my husband's name after my name. And if even if I have a child, it's going to be the same. The child is going to decide what she wants to do, what she wants to become, what she wants to grow up to be. And I'm going to do my work, and I'm going to do only that, and I'm not going to be tied to the kitchen sink. So culturally also you see this, the kind of a traditional roles are something which the bird remedies find very stifling, and they would rather not have those and break those bonds, so that they can be free to travel, free to do what they like, free to pursue their interests, free to pursue their careers, not have children perhaps, which is something very strange in an Indian context, where generally women have one or two children, and they generally toe the line. So here you have somebody who goes to the extent of saying that I don't even want my husband's name attached. It's like a string that weighs me down. That was very strange in a cultural context. It was PQRS for me. So, and taking care of parents is also in a cultural context, is something that's expected and accepted, that the children will take care of parents. So for her it was very tough, although her mother didn't live with her in this case, and in the other case also, it was very tough to say no to a parent whom you're expected, or that it is generally accepted that the daughter or the son will take care of the older parents. So both of them were not comfortable doing that, and both of them not just uncomfortable doing that, but they felt that that aspect of their life held them back.
Yeah,
taking care of the parent, towing the line, and negating their wishes really held them back. So the ability to even say no, I don't want to eat this, was something that they found tremendously freeing. So one would say that the symptoms are very intense. So in a cultural context, if you explore it, it's extremely intense for them. So, somebody even from outside India would say, what's there in this? You stay close by, take care of your parents. It's practical. No, it would be very difficult for them. So this is what I observed and I came across.
I understand. I just wondered how it is with Muslim people.
Oh, very interesting.
Say, just say women in the Emirates or something. There
Hmm.
must be a lot of bird remedies created just by
There
education.
must be. There must be, because I believe their falconry is not
Yes,
just a sport.
it's
It's a way of
escalated
life.
sport. Yeah.
It's a way of life, and it's a matter of pride for a father to introduce his young son or sons to falconry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like one would possibly go out to the beach for a day at the beach. You know, they plan a day at the desert, being with their falcons, training them as a sort of an matter of fact everyday thing.
Mm-hmm.
So to carry on that tradition,
Yeah.
and to say that for hundreds of years my father, his father and his father have carried on with falconry. So if my son takes it up, then it would be fantastic for me. So because this is what we have set up, and this is our culture, and this is our identity, they say. So, and also, if you'll see in the Emirates, uh, from nothing, literally, they've created these huge huge skyscrapers. And being at the top of the skyscraper and getting a bird's eye view is something that most of these people like. And oftentimes what they do is they take the falcon by a special elevator to the top of the tallest building, and then they attach a camera to the back of the harness. And then they have a whole they have either a drone uh, flying alongside, or you have the falcon's bird's eye view being caught actually on that camera, and they really enjoy that, the whole journey, how the falcon circles and then locates somewhere on a field far away, or a basketball court or something. The handler is there with his hand, and how it zooms in, and they enjoy that aspect. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. And whereas if you see the subculture of the Emirates, which is not really talked about, most of this development has come about by you know um, people from the subcontinent: Indians, Sri Lankans, Bangladeshis,
And
Pakistanis. They're living there outside in the desert in their camps and residential camps, and very cramped and very not so healthy, and um, four or five people together at one spot and in one cramped space. And so you have the vastness and the hugeness and the the skyscrapers being built so fast. And and on the other side you have these literally this legions of people living there in the desert, their workforce,
in
whom
cages, more or less.
uh, in really appalling conditions, I believe. And but then they can't really do anything about it. They can't return home, and their passports are
Taken.
taken away, and they have to be there for their families. They're sending back money for their families. So also held in a way captive.
Yeah.
So the workforce, other side of the glittering Emirates that not many people see, or you know it's there, but you don't really
Look at it.
look at it or acknowledge it on a day-to-day basis. Yes, that's true.
So in the Arabian countries, we should suppose that they have a lot of bird remedies always.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I suppose a lot of lac equinums also. You would have a lot of lac equinums as well. Um, People being there for their families, not really having a choice that they could make for themselves to be there or not, driving themselves to to being unhappy deep down inside, and really working hard for their families, to support their families back, not being happy in that place, but not really having much of a choice.
Mhm.
So you would probably have a lot of lac equinums as well there, and the bird remedies, and I suppose
What about Africa? Can we see something else there?
Africa is a place, actually there's a lot of mankind really began from there, isn't it? It is a cradle of civilization where everything began. I suppose the remains of the earliest human female are, when they analyzed the skull type, they found that she's of African descent. And it's a question of, I would expect a lot of leprous or leprosyphilitic remedies to be there, because literally coming from, you are the mother probably of all nations, of all peoples everywhere, and yet your own life and your own uh, uh, generations going forward, or your own right to survive, or ability to survive, or your own color, you're discriminated for a lot of these reasons. And your resources, African subcontinent, the mineral reserves, and be it ivory, or any even diamonds, and a lot of these reserves come from there. And you have several small very rich conglomerates sitting elsewhere outside India that are actually controlling this. And even cacao, if you see, Ghana is the world's probably responsible for 75% of the world's chocolate cacao production. And locally, if you see, they're living in poverty. So, and somewhere for us in Belgium or France or India, even for that matter, chocolate is a decadent pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And even avocados grow very abundantly in Africa. And I've heard from friends who have been posted in Africa that locally in Africa they don't really consume avocados. They're not used to it. They don't know as a fruit that it is highly nutritious. It has good fat content, and they're so used to doing for others, they've not really got their due, what they're owed to them. There's a lot of exploitation that's happening there as a country, as a people, and a lot of discrimination that's happening. So I would suspect something like a lac remedy, like a lac defloratum, lac caninum. They're not really allowed to speak their mind, and coming up there. A lot of the big conglomerates, I believe, and I've read reports that the remedies and the medicines, the pharma companies, they try them out first there in Africa, because not a lot of this gets out. So you have HIV remedies being tested there, tubercular, for anti-TB remedies being tested there. Now you probably have the COVID. Sorry.
Malaria.
Yes, absolutely, being tested there. The quinine being tested there. A lot of new remedies may be being tested there. They don't have access to the outside world. They're not aware that they can ask for these rights for themselves. And it's really sad. So I would expect a lot of remedies which have exploitation, not being given their rights, their basic rights, not allowed to speak for themselves, and not allowed to voice their opinions. So, along with the bird remedies, I would expect lac defloratum, lac caninum, lac equinum, maybe even lac suis to come up there. And also simpler remedies, because when you come to it, the more you are out in the outside world, the more your ego is putting up these barriers, and uh, sh- um, showing you separate from the world, and putting up these constructs, ego constructs, that you appear to be somebody more advanced or more capable than you are, perhaps. Whereas I think in Africa, the people are who they are, and what you see is probably what you get, and it would be pretty straightforward. And if you will not get very highly complicated prescriptions, perhaps. You will not get like a aurum muriaticum natronatum or something like that there. It would be pretty straightforward. It would do with food, clothing, shelter, lack, maybe acid remedies, maybe malnutrition. So you'll have the remedies related to that, like abrotanums and the acid group of remedies. You'll also have a lot of lac defloratum, lac caninum,
I don't think so.
which I expect to be there. And also uh, this anger which is there, white savior complex which is there, along with that there might be a black, um, I don't know how to put it. So I don't know. I don't have the right words. This resentment that is there deep within, so which is there steeped in their history. Also, if you look at Nelson Mandela himself, 26 years in prison,
Insane.
and coming back out into the world without a hint of resentment for his captors, for a life lost, for a career lost, for youth lost. He managed to put that aside and to walk hand in hand with them and achieve what he did. So that would ask for a very spiritual bird remedy, I expect, and I believe that you could forgive and look at the overview, the larger picture, and take various your enemy also along with you, your ideological enemy along with you, and say that it's no more black or white. It's we move forward and retaining the old symbols like of colonialism or apartheid, and not really discarding them and saying no, I will turn my back on all of this, but moving forward with all of that would require a bird remedy. Now I don't know which one. Maybe it would require something like
Maybe eagle or mescal.
maybe eagle, or maybe like like catharsis, maybe like an old world vulture that could go through this experience and heal not just himself but a nation. So he tried to heal, tried to move forward and look at the larger picture.
I was
So
just thinking of another class of people, the old women in Europe who used
mm,
to work with the herbs and then were burned as witches. They always were living close to the forest, alone, not married, and they were called, if I literally translate it, they were called free women.
oh,
Freifrau is the German
mm,
word for it.
try how
Freifrau.
try frau
Yeah. Frei is free and Frau
free
is woman.
frau
Mhm.
women.
And
Very
that
interesting.
must have been bird remedies too.
Yes, and also maybe even Solanaceae, or maybe even Labiati remedies, being in control, being the masters of their own passions and their own intellect, not wanting to be tied down to the laws and rules of society,
Yeah.
asking for their rightful place and being very strong about it. So Solanaceae remedies, or maybe like a Lamiaceae, Labiati remedies, maybe even any of these bird remedies. Also, they
And
would need.
usually were pictured with the ravens.
Yes, I was just going to say that also with the Corvus Corax, isn't it? So the druids and the healers and the teachers who are able to have a world view and integrate various streams of thought and be able to teach it and go forward and heal and be very intelligent in the not in the intellectual way, but in a very earthy.
Practical.
Innately intelligent, spiritually intelligent women. So very interesting. Yes, it would be a very hard life. It would not be easy to speak your truth,
Yeah.
and and if you're to be set aside, by society and expected to be in a particular way, and to be able to break free of that and be with the elements and be on the outside and treated as an outcast, and yet keep your your intelligence and your worth. Absolutely, it would be very interesting. Did they have hard lives?
Extremely.
Extremely, must be.
And, totally self-sustaining.
Hmm. living off the grid, survivors, survivalists, or what do you call them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And usually with a lot of healing capacity, a lot of knowledge about herbs and how to do them, how to work with them. And this is how they earned a bit of money, because they made the teas and the liquids for healing.
Exactly. This reminds me of a friend of mine, this German lady, who she and her husband, they found even living in a small village very difficult in Europe. So they moved out of the village near a lake. They had their own cabin there, and this was on the migratory path of some birds. And they just lived off the grid with only a radio, and brought water from the lake, and washed their own clothes. And even for us, going to visit them, it used to be, you could be living in the village with electricity. They said, no, no, that's okay, we love it here, and it's peace and quiet. And she would chop firewood, and she used to make these beautiful crocheted blankets, and she would go into the village and sell it. And they had their own small kiln at home, and they would make their own, they baked their own bread, and they chopped their own firewood, and they studied the birds. And for them, coming to the little village was very tough on their system.
Yeah, I understand that very good. All my life I've been living in solitude.
Oh, okay.
Even now here in Greece, I'm living in a house above the village.
Oh.
On the top of the hill. No house aside, and I need the view over the sea.
Yes, that's amazing, isn't it? So either you get the remedy that you need, or you get the situation that really heals you from inside.
Yeah.
So they were very happy there, and we found it very difficult.
I imagine it's a different life, but it's without social and electrosmog and all this stress. It's tough, but without stress. It's very difficult to understand, but I understand what they mean.
Yes, but it feeds your soul in a very different way, that living within the parameters of society probably takes away a lot and adds stress, whereas living in a place like this, like my friend was, with just the birds for company, and just sustaining, and just doing enough to manage herself, was something that was very comforting to her. Yeah.
I just have trouble with a cat who wants to go down from the desk without smashing something.
Well, look at that. We are on the top of the hour already. It's 5 o'clock. So it's very interesting speaking to you. You're making me look at remedies in a very different way. You're making me look at situations in a very different way. So it's amazing.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to talk to you.